But question I have for you, I'm looking at a post right now by someone named Tim Kennedy. He's an Army Ranger. He's a military. He's in the military. He's also was an MMA fighter. But he has a post, and on this post, it's an aerial view of both South Korea, North Korea, and China above it. I'm looking at it right now. We might post this on our YouTube video. So on the very bottom of South Korea, there's lights everywhere. North Korea is completely. There's only a few lights, and above is China.
Yeah.
Could you maybe just zoom in? Because I know we're going to talk about your book, While Time Remains, but I think it's really important for our audience to really understand day-to-day life for you up until you were 13 years old and what that typically looks like. Because a lot of people just don't truly understand. Can you, that's the zoom out picture. Can you just bring us into that? Explain to us a typical day for you in North Korea when you were living there growing up.
Yeah, in that picture, as you can see, that even in the 21st century, North Korean people don't have electricity. The only places that had electricity was in Pyongyang, capital where Kim Jong-il lives, and then few monuments around the country that Kim's had on.
Mm-hmm.
And as a day-to-day as a North Korean, it's really depending on what caste system you're in. So this is often people don't understand about North Korea. It began with the idea of equality of outcomes, that's everybody all equal, communism and collectivism.
Mm-hmm.
Once government, abolished private property, abolished all the people's rights to own anything, what they did was they divided North Korean people into 51 different classes.
Mm.
And North Koreans are same genetics and homogeneous nation. We speak the same language. So, but these 51 classes were basically purely upon on what your ancestors did.
Mm.
So what my great-grandfather did during the revolution, communist revolution, was a landowner, was a capitalist, was an intellectual, was a, communist.
Mm.
And depending on what he did, our status gets determined when we are born into the society.
So this would be kind of like the caste system in Hinduism or or like in India, where you're just born in a certain sect and there's no way to really get out of it. Is there a similarity? Is there a way when someone is in these different 51 classes, a way to get out of that? Is there a way to redeem themselves for the sins of the past? Maybe I'm getting ahead of myself, but what are your thoughts on that?
So there's no way of getting out of that. So North Korea, if you marry somebody, like let's say the girl is a lower class and guy is a higher class. When you marry, what happens is you don't marry up. The entire guy's family goes down with the girl.
Yeah.
So that's how they prevent people mixing with each other.
Mm.
And so you only go down, you cannot go up. And it's similar like right now in America where people say, oh, you are guilty, you are privileged. I have a son who's half white, and people saying like he's like privileged and he should be like white gift. And like that, like when North Korean being born, we don't choose our ancestors.
Yeah.
So it's not something you can redeem or you can change. It's like your grandfather did that, and therefore this is your life from now on.
Yeah. And Andrew, what questions do you have just about day-to-day life in North Korea? What's in your mind that you'd like to ask Yeonmi?
My question would be for Yeonmi, just to flesh out that class system a little bit more. What did the regime qualify as being bad that puts you in the lowest class that your ancestors did? I'm trying to understand just specifically, what were the sins according to the regime that put you in a lower class?
So if you kill somebody or rape somebody or steal somebody, those are not very serious crimes in North Korea, especially raping. And those crimes are not even a crime. They don't have a concept of rape there. However, those most serious crimes, what they call is political crime. That is where your great-grandfather was a landowner. Like he had a tiny land in his garden. Or he was a capitalist. He had a factory before the revolution. Or he was working with South Korea or Japan. So the worst crime is the ideological crime. If they were not pure peasant communists, that's the worst thing you can be. So the people literally the threshold ending up in North Korean prison camps and getting executed is like somebody, like there's a newspaper on the front page, there's pictures of dictators, right? And you didn't see that, and you saw the bag and you tear down that page, and that's a crime, you get executed. And sending your 3 generations of your family end up in a concentration camp.
Wow.
Yeah. Let me ask you this too. When did this all start? In just the history of North Korea? I mean, I know, like I remember when President George W. Bush was president, and he started talking about North Korea. At that time, it was Kim Jong Il, and now Kim Jong Un is in charge of North Korea. Did this start with Kim Jong Il, or was it previous to that? Like, when did this really start? Like, how long ago was this? When this takeover happened, where the promise was given that they're going to get people full. I know I've heard your talks about they were promised square, I think like 3-4 square meals a day, and provide food and shelter they give their property. When did this take place?
It began with Kim Il-sung, the first king, the grandfather, and in the 1940s, like 45, 48, when the World War ended, when World War II ended, and Japan left Korea. They were colonizing Korea for 3 decades, and they left Korea. So there was a group in the South that was backed by the US, that was Lee Sung-man, and there was a Kim Il-sung in the North who was backed by Mao in China and Stalin.
Yeah.
So there's 2 governments came together, and then they put this line, like 38 pillar there. So North chose to communism first, copying Mao and Stalin's version of communism, and South Korea copied the American version of a free market democracy.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we know which system wins eventually, right? North Korea is a perfect example of testing ideas. We divide a country that had same people, same genetics, same IQ, I mean, tradition, culture, everything. And then let's give them different 2 sets of ideas. And one became the country of K-pop and Samsung. One became the darkest country in the world.
Yeah. And so when you were when you came to America, I know you talked about how you were studying so much, how you almost you weren't even eating, you weren't even sleeping, because you just had that much. You just wanted to learn, which I really, really admired, both in your interviews and you talked about that in your book. I've been that's been a motivation for me. Like, I need to make sure I'm studying as well too. Do you see? Have you studied other communist dictatorships like the Soviet Union, or you think about just other places where it's been fascist? You think, well, there's Mao. You think about the Soviet Union, Cuba, Fidel Castro. Have you studied those groups, and what similarities do you see, and what differences do you see when in comparison to North Korea, how communism was ran there?
Yeah, I think the things like Cambodia, Vietnam, right, Venezuela, and Cuba, of course, the Soviet Union and China. I have studied some of those examples for sure. And the similarities is, of course, whenever governments take the control, they mess up everything they touch.
Yeah.
They are not very efficient system ever. Even though they try, maybe they start with good intentions, but it always ending up the bureaucracy, the corruption, the exploitation of the workers. That, it seems like the same thing happening, but other countries, I think, was not quite able to take it to the isolation that North Korea chose to do.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
for instance, North Koreans don't even know the existence of internet.